Hi, I'm Daiva, and I'm an alcoholic. It's great being in this meeting here. First of all, I'd like to thank Maureen, or whoever it was that asked me to speak here. It's an honor and a privilege to share in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's like everyone's so happy here. It reminds me of when I was new, and I came to these meetings and I saw, everybody so happy and like shaking hands and hugging each other, and I thought, it's like you guys are so happy. There's like no way you guys can be sober. You all must be high, There's like no way, and people would say, and I had kind of an attitude when I was new, It's like I thought, there's like no way you guys could be so happy. There's no way, It's like, and especially the things you guys said at the podium. You guys would say things like, ever since I walked into the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous, I've been walking on the sunny side of the street. And I'd look at you and I'd be, with my evil eye and just think, God, you guys are a bunch of liars because, I'm miserable. It's like, I'm new, this place sucks, everything sucks, the world sucks, I suck, you suck. It's like, it's screwed, And I used to sit there, in these meetings and I'd like cross my arms like this, and I'd like think, all right, one of these days you guys are going to ask me to come up and share at the podium. And I'll let you know what I'm really thinking, So I used to fantasize. I used to, sit there, think, one day you'll call me up, say, Daiva, please come to the podium and share. And I would come up like I did tonight, and I would say, hi, I'm Daiva, and I'm an alcoholic. And then I would throw my arms into the air, pull out a razor blade, slit my wrist, go running down the aisle screaming, it doesn't work! Okay. So... unfortunately, I won't be doing that here tonight. Okay. Instead, I will tell you that Alcoholics Anonymous does work. It's worked for me for just a little over 15 years. And for those of you who are trying to figure out how old I am, I'm 37, so that makes me 22 when I came to AA. But actually, I was really more like 21. But anyways, that's a whole different story. So I was born and raised in Santa Monica, West Side. But, I didn't know it was really Santa Monica, that I was being raised in. Because, see, I was raised in my ethnic community. My family had come from this place called Lithuania, and if you don't know where that is, that's someplace a little northeast of Poland that was gobbled up, and taken over by the Soviet Union back when there was a Soviet Union, after World War II. So I grew up speaking this strange language called Lithuanian, which was not really practical in, Santa Monica at the time. But, it's like, so from the beginning I really felt different, I didn't know what was going on. It's like I can remember my first day in nursing school, it was kind of like, I didn't know what was going on, basically. The teacher was talking, all I heard was like, wah, 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 and, and I see people stand up, so I stand up because I think I'm supposed to stand up, and then I get yelled at because, I've noticed there's only the guys are supposed to stand up, the girls are sitting down, it's like I just don't speak the language, it's like I don't understand what you want from me. I don't know what's going on, and that's basically how I felt all my life. It's like I don't speak the language, I don't know what you guys want. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I don't know what's happening. Somehow I'm supposed to figure all that out on my own. Even today, if you tell me to close that door over there, my keen little alcoholic mind starts going into overdrive and starts thinking, well, do you want me to close the door now? You want me to close it later? You want me to close it quickly, softly, with me on the other side of it? What? I don't understand what you mean by close the door, It's like, it's not enough information. I don't get it, So that's kind of how I grew up. I just didn't know what the hell was going on. I just tried to fit in where I can, but I never could. So I just, knew just to kind of keep my mouth shut, and not saying anything at all. I was like, I went to Catholic school, so all I knew was really just nothing, basically. But what I did know was, I started drinking really early on. It wasn't, some big ceremonious, event. Basically, my culture, people drink, and they drink a lot, and there's a lot of it everywhere. And I can remember from an early age, just like after some party at my parents' house, waking up early in the morning and, just going around the tables and finishing off whatever was left. It's like taking out the cigarette butts and, finish it off. I didn't care. And I knew that, that worked for me. I knew I wasn't supposed to be drinking, but everybody else was drinking, and it made me feel good. I don't know why it made me feel good, but it did. So that's just something I did, and it's just like I was always sneaking drinks, and even in Catholic school, when with my little Catholic school outfit with my plaid skirt, with my Marlboro Reds, rolled up in my sleeve, hanging out, in the girls' bathroom, forcing, third graders to smoke cigarettes, That's it's like I knew, where my place was in life was to be cool and be the bully because, I was already insecure, and basically, I didn't know how to work this thing called life, And like I said, I grew up in Santa Monica, so all I really knew was to kind of hang out, the Venice Boardwalk. And, by the time I was 13, I knew about, I was getting high every day and doing drugs at school and stuff like that. And that was just kind of like my daily thing. By the time I was 15, I was just kind of a drug addict. And my daily routine was basically to wake up in the morning, wait for my dad, to go to work. Then I'd go into the kitchen. I'd get my 16-ounce bottle of Tab, drink half of that, and then go into the bar, finish, throw in some whiskey or some kind of alcohol. We had tons of alcohol in my house. On Sundays we used to make wine, so we have like grain alcohol everywhere. There's, my parents never missed a bottle, we had like 3 bars in my house, so it was all there. And then, so I'd pour in some whiskey and I'd, also at the time I was taking some Quaaludes, and I realized that, that this one particular morning I forgot my Quaaludes. It's like I ran out. I was like, God, how can I run out and not know that I was going to run out? So, I thought to myself, being the smart alcoholic that I am, it's like my dad was on high blood pressure medication. So I figured, I'll just go into his medicine cabinet and, look for those little bottles that have the little orange label. Back then they were actually yellow labels that said, may cause drowsiness when mixed with alcohol. So that was just a big sign for me to take one of this, one of that, one of this, one of that, which I did. So needless to say, it's like I walked down to school and I finished my alcohol, my little cocktail, and I took these high blood pressure pills. So by second period, my blood pressure dropped. Those pills work. But at the same time, my friends had me, in the bathroom. They were trying to keep me awake, and they were like pouring coffee and donuts in my, mouth and stuff. And afterwards, they looked at me and they were like, why did you have to take those pills? And I said, well, because, I ran out of Quaaludes. And, those pills were there and there was something for me to take. And they were like, no, why did you have to take those pills? And I said, well, because I ran out of my Quaaludes, and this is what I had. I didn't realize, what she was asking was, why did I have to take anything at all? I didn't realize, she just basically, called me a drug addict and an alcoholic, and I just said, well, no, I'm just Lithuanian. This is what this is what we do, we drink and do drugs, and that's just part of my culture, it's part of my heritage. So basically there's really not much to my drinking and using, after 15, except that it just got worse, and I just did more of everything. I basically hung out in Hollywood at the clubs and stuff, and, just with all the bands and everything, and just did drugs and drank, It wasn't very exciting. I didn't really get that far. It's like things happened, it's like, I'm a girl, so I did everything that I could to get my drugs and alcohol. At the same time, bad things happened, and that's just the way things go when you're out there. By the time I was 21, it was, I had to just like get the hell out of here. So me and my friend decided to go backpacking, in Europe. So we just kind of like packed up and left. And, the first night we went to London, right? The first thing that I wanted to see was, a pub. So the next morning I woke up in this hotel room. I realized, I was in a lot of pain. I couldn't stand up. There were bruises on this side of my body and bruises on that side of my body, and I didn't quite know what was going on. I looked at my friend, and, I was going to ask her what happened, but she looked really mad at me, so I was kind of afraid to ask her what happened. But, I realized I couldn't even stand up. So, I asked her, like, what happened last night? Last thing I remember, I was at this pub, and, I was getting, some fish and chips, and another pint of beer, and she looked at me, and she's like, God, I can't believe you can't remember last night. She said, like, after the pub, we were walking down the street, and I don't know how many of you guys have been to London, but you know how people drive on the other side of the road and stuff? It's all really kind of confusing. So apparently I stepped off the curb to cross the street when, all of a sudden, bam, I got hit by this taxi. And I was laying on the ground, and she started crying because she thought, I was dead, and, she was going to have to call my mom, and, there was going to be this drama. And then, but I stood up, got, started looking at the taxi driver, basically started yelling at him, got in this big fight with the taxi driver in the middle of the street and everything, and then he got sick of me, and he jumped back in the cab, drove off, and I continued crossing the same street when all of a sudden, bam, on the other side, I got hit by another taxi cab. So, that one didn't bother to argue with me. He just drove off. And I kept, and then I went and played Ding Dong Ditch until, the cops, wanted to arrest me and, then escorted me back to the hotel and blah, blah, blah. So that was my first night in London, And my friend looked at me. She said, doesn't it bother you, that you can't remember anything? It's like, especially like 2 taxi cabs hitting you in, 5 minutes, And, I looked at her, like, no, if I don't remember, it means I'm having fun, right? It's like, and that was the thing. It's like, I thought, I was having fun, even though I knew I was slowly killing myself. It's like, I didn't, it's like after a while, I drank just to make it all stop. It's like, I didn't want to do this world anymore because, this world just sucked. And like I said, everybody sucked. Everything sucked. It's just like, there's no God, it's like, screw this place, this is like one big sick joke, and I don't want to be a part of this. And the only way I could just even get out the door was with the drink. The way I got into Alcoholics Anonymous was that, basically I did one of these like late night phone calls to, a friend who went away in college, and, she started crying on the phone. She said, why... every time you call me, you're drunk. It's like, I can't take it anymore. You want me to fly over there and, take you to AA or something? You have to do something, I didn't realize I was hurting other people with my drinking and using. I thought, it's my life. Screw you. I'll do whatever I want. It's like, I'm not hurting anybody, so, who cares? And I didn't realize I was hurting my family and the people around me. By this time, I was just kind of like living out of my car and just not going to good places. Everything was, pretty bad. So I told this friend, like, okay, well, I'll go to an AA meeting. There's this guy that's passed out in the other room who has to go on a court card, so I'll just go with him. So the next night, me and this guy, he just rolled his truck. He was my good friend, and so we went to an AA meeting. I related a little bit. Some woman spoke, and I thought, that was an interesting story. And afterwards we got a 12-pack and, got drunk. So me and him did that for a little while. I thought I was supporting him because I was, making sure that he was going on his court card and, that sort of thing. And eventually, like after a little, but we kept on drinking. And after a little while, there was a friend of ours that heard that we went to a couple meetings, and he said, hey, why don't you, come to where I go, And I was like, all right, whatever. So I show up at this other meeting, and I heard somebody share at this, podium. They say there's a program of attraction, rather than promotion. I heard somebody share at the podium that they were a grateful alcoholic, and I thought, at the time, I was doing a lot of acid and going to a lot of Dead shows, and I thought, this is like some secret Grateful Dead, AA group or something like that. Maybe, maybe this is where I'm supposed to be, And then, afterwards, it's like, I raised my hand, and afterwards, like 100 women came up to me and gave me their numbers and stuff, and I thought that was a little strange and odd, and they were like, no, you have to go to our, women's meeting the next day, and, next day I know this, like, woman turned around and looks at me, and she's like, okay, I'm going to be your AA sponsor, and I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? She's like, come on, like, go in the back now, help us clean up the kitchen after this meeting, and, I'm like, okay, whatever, so I go clean up the kitchen, and then this other woman comes to me, hey, this is going to be your commitment. And I said, what does that mean? It's like, oh, you'll come here every week and, help clean the kitchen after the meeting. And I'm like, well, okay. And I'm thinking in my head, try this AA thing for a couple of weeks, see how it goes. I asked, well, like, how long do I have to, do this? She said, like, oh, a year, and I'm like, whoa, I'm not... I don't, I was like, I don't plan on being here for a year, it's like, what are you guys talking about, and, so what kind of happened was, like, I started coming to these meetings, but I still wasn't staying sober because I didn't realize you guys actually stopped drinking either, it's like I thought, okay, maybe if I stopped taking the drugs, that would be cool, but it's like I didn't understand how you guys did not go every day without a drink. So this interim sponsor, she couldn't take it one day. She said, if you can't get more than 10 days of sobriety together, it's like, I can't sponsor you anymore. You're fired. And I looked at her and go, oh, I'll show you who can't get 10 days, So, I got that 10 days and I still have it, That's kind of what started me in my sobriety, was with the resentment to show her, So now I really showed her.
Really?
So that's the kind of, like, alcoholic newcomer that I was. I was just kind of pissed, and, I was going to show you, and, and slowly Alcoholics Anonymous kind of, like, took over my life. I got, for some reason, it's like I didn't realize there were all these different kinds of AA. Had I known back then, it's like, boy, I didn't realize I ended up in the Pacific group of Alcoholics Anonymous, and basically they just, like, took over my life. I thought everybody did AA like this, and, I was just, like, going with the crowd, and I had no idea what the hell was going on. As usual, I'm just like, all right, what do I do? It's like, I don't get any of this. All right, you want me to play softball? I hate sports. Okay, I'll play softball. It's like, what? I have to wear cleats? Who wears cleats? What are cleats? And just like, you have to go to these retreats, and you have to go on these conventions, and you have to go on these panels, and you have to wear a goddamn dress, It's just like... I didn't get all this, how all this stuff worked, for Alcoholics Anonymous. What was all of this crap about? After a year, it's like, but I also heard a lot of things from the podium, things that I never heard of, things that started to make sense to me, that, this alcoholism, this is a disease that's, an allergy of the body coupled with an obsession of the mind. And that was something that I can understand. It's like, for the first time I actually heard something I understood. I had read a lot of philosophy, I had read a lot of, religious books. I've actually, like, read the Bible, I've read the Quran, the Bhagavad Gita. It's just like I've been always trying to look for God, look for the answer, look for the meaning of life, and I've never found it. And I can't say that I found it immediately in Alcoholics Anonymous, but for some reason in AA, I actually heard stuff that actually made sense, and I could kind of sit back and, not able to, like, refute it and go, that sounds like me, And I would hear stuff from the podium. I would hear, my secrets, up at the podium, I'd hear people talk about how, obsessed they were about stuff, It's just like, I know, like me, it's like if I have a zit on my ass, I'd be thinking, okay, everybody can see the zit on my ass, it's like... And then it's like I hear people share that, once a week at AA, I'm like, okay, I'm not the only one with zits on my ass, that's great. So I only have one, okay, okay. All right, so when I had, like, about a year of sobriety, there was a part of me that was kind of like, I'm still kind of different, It's like I'm an alcoholic, but really the fact of the matter is I'm Lithuanian, It's like you guys don't understand my culture and my heritage and my tradition and my upbringing. It's like, how can you people relate to all of that? It's like you guys haven't even heard of Lithuania, And that's who I am, and you guys are telling me I'm an alcoholic, I'm like, well, no, but I'm Lithuanian, And this in 1989, I had the opportunity to go visit Lithuania, and I thought, this is 1989. This is when it was still the Cold War. We still had the Berlin Wall. We still had the Iron Curtain, and I thought, okay, I'm going to have like a year and a half. I'm going to go to Lithuania. I'm going to, get a chance to get with my culture and have some, homemade vodka, and just, get this stuff all over with, It's like, I'll show you guys, what I really am. I'm going to go to Lithuania and be Lithuanian. And so I told my sponsor, she's like, is there any AA in Lithuania? I go, it's behind the Iron Curtain. There's nothing there, It's like, what do I know? There's nothing there. And she said, well, you know what? It's like I had been reading the grapevine, and first I thought, the grapevine? Is there actually anybody on this planet who actually reads the grapevine? But she told me there was this letter from this guy in Lithuania who started Alcoholics Anonymous in Lithuania. And she said, I think it'd be a good idea if you call central office, in New York and see if they have this guy's phone number. I'm thinking, okay, sure, spons, I'll do that. And what I've learned here is you do what you say you're going to do. And I thought, what are the odds that, central office in New York is going to have some number in the Soviet Union, for some guy who's, like trying to start AA out there, right? So I call, New York Central Office, and I say, hey, I'm Daiva, and I'm an alcoholic. I'm traveling to Lithuania. Do you perhaps just have a phone number for another alcoholic out there? And, all of a sudden, they said, oh, actually, we do, And this lady said, and, since you're going, why don't you bring all this AA literature with you, So there I was in the Moscow International Airport, arguing with customs officials, about why I'm trying to smuggle, 50 pounds of AA literature and big books into the Soviet Union. So in my first day in Lithuania, basically I was traveling with some friends, and my friends were ready to go be Lithuanian and hit the town, And my little head thinks, it's like I told my sponsor the first thing I would do is, call this number, And I thought, okay, this is Lithuania, this is Soviet Union, KGB on the phone lines, all, shaky stuff here, And I thought, okay, well, I'll just call the number. He's probably not going to answer, and then I'll go party with my friends, That's the plan. So I call this guy, and on the first the first ring, somebody picks up and says, hello, I'm like, yeah, hi, I'm Daiva, I'm alcoholic from Los Angeles. Next thing I know, this guy says, oh, okay, we're going to have a car come pick you up in an hour. We're going to have a meeting. We're all ready for you. Let's go, So, and I thought, damn, it's like, so there I was, in this like little apartment, and there was me and these 12 other, alcoholics, and they had like this bad translation of the big book that somebody's wife who was, a Jesus freak had translated like all this, whatever. It was just a very bad translation of the big book. And so there they were all talking, and, they were introducing themselves. Hi, I'm, Romos, I'm an alcoholic. Hi, I'm, Joseph, I'm an alcoholic. And then it comes to me, and, I felt like, they're like 12 of them and me, and they're looking at me with my year and a half of sobriety, like some old timer, which I was, in that room, because Alcoholics Anonymous had just started a year previously, and they're looking at me, and I'm thinking, I feel like Jesus at the Last Supper, and though I wish, that I was going to be crucified soon because I didn't really want to deal with all this, but it was too much pressure. But the one thing I did notice, it's like it all of a sudden kind of hit me. I thought, they weren't introducing themselves as, hey, I'm, Joe, Lithuanian alcoholic. They were introducing themselves as alcoholics, and I didn't feel so different. And then I felt really stupid because these people, here I am coming from the land of, 2,000 meetings a week in the greater Los Angeles area, anytime I want, any kind of meeting I want, with all these tools of Alcoholics Anonymous, like conventions and panels and, H&I and, central office, general service, all this stuff, that they don't have. Here I am getting ready to get drunk, because I feel different. And, and all they've got are themselves, just the 12 of them, in this bad translation of Alcoholics Anonymous. And, it's like, and they were staying sober, and they were okay, and it's in another thing, like back in that time, 1989, it was the Soviet Union. There were still laws there that were pretty serious. Back in those days, you couldn't have a public gathering like this. That was, one-way ticket to the KGB jail. And there they were, sitting around in a group and having a meeting, which was completely illegal. So here I am taking for granted the fact that I could walk in and out in AA and not worry about it. And here they were secretly, gathering behind the back of, the government to stay sober. At the same time, at that time, it's kind of weird to explain, but to be an alcoholic meant you had to go to jail. You couldn't be an alcoholic. It was illegal. And they had special jails for alcoholics. So to stand there and say, hey, I'm an alcoholic is a one-way ticket, to one of these jails. So they're giving up everything they have to just, be a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I realized that when I was sitting there and watching them share, and, when I watched them share, I realized that they were sharing like everyone shares here, the same insecurities, the same issues, the same problems, the same disease. So what happened was when I came back to America, and I realized I wasn't so different, and I continued being active in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I decided to also kind of give back to my Lithuanian community, because I've been taught here to be of service, so I decided to stretch out my service to my community, in which that I wreaked havoc. And so what happened was that afforded me the opportunity to go back to Lithuania. When I had 3 years of sobriety, I went back in 1991. And 1991 was an interesting time in Lithuania, because that was basically when Lithuania had declared independence from the Soviet Union, and in January of 91, the tanks had overrun Lithuania, and everything politically was unstable and pretty bad, and people were killed, and it was just not a good scene. But AA was still there when I showed up, and there were some people that were still sober when I showed up there. In April of that year, we had this AA convention in Latvia, which is a country just north of Lithuania. And I kind of didn't want to go to this convention because, it was going to be held in Russian. I don't speak Russian. And I thought, it's like, my attitude comes up. It's like, I don't want to do it. I'm not going to get it. Why should I go? It's like, it's screwed, whatever. There's political upheaval. It's like, I don't want to be part of all this crap. But, also in my head, I learned, I know that this is a language of the heart. It doesn't really matter. All I've been taught here in Alcoholics Anonymous is just to show up no matter what. So I went to this, meeting. It was held over a weekend, and basically at that meeting were all these pioneers of Alcoholics Anonymous throughout the Soviet Union. Everybody was there, who started AA in all these, 15 Soviet republics, and then there was me, this punk from Santa Monica, and and I just kind of sat there, and kind of the whole weekend I had a little bit of attitude because I didn't understand everything, but I kept telling myself, language of the heart, language of the heart, language of the heart. And, at the end of the convention, it was like all over, and I was so happy it was over. But this guy named Sasha from St. Petersburg came up to me, and he said, thank you. I said, for what? I couldn't share. I didn't really participate. I didn't really do anything except, take up space. And he said, no, I want to thank you because you're an American. I said, you shouldn't thank me for that. That's nothing to thank me for. He said, no, you don't understand. And he asked me, to share this anytime I had opportunity to share. And he said, basically, I want to thank you because, it was the Americans, Alcoholics Anonymous had started here in America, and it was the Americans that took Alcoholics Anonymous to Russia, first in 1986 with a few group of people, and it's spread out since then. And he wanted me to share with all of you guys, to let you guys know that, because Alcoholics Anonymous, on the other side of the planet is a little bit scarce, they don't have all the tools of AA that we have here, that they're kind of starved for any, any alcoholics, touching them in any way. And that they know that, while all of you guys are sitting here, thinking about yourselves tonight, that I want to let you guys know that you guys have people, on the other side of the planet, praying for you for your sobriety, because they know that you guys are going to help someone who's 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 going to go over there and help someone, and that's what they're praying for. They're praying for the reach of Alcoholics Anonymous to reach them faster, and with more alcoholics reaching them. So that's it's like I always forget about that. I think everybody sucks, the world sucks, and then I think, oh, but wait, I think I feel somebody praying for me, and it's like I like to think that that's what's happening, is that somebody's praying for me to stay sober just so that I can make another trip out there and maybe help them somehow, or somebody else can take a trip out there and help them out. During that time in 1991, there was a little political event called, the Moscow coup in August. At that time, I was working for the Lithuanian government, and I have no idea, how I get these jobs, but because I'm just a punk from Santa Monica, and so I was working for the Lithuanian government at the time, and we were holed up in the Parliament building, and that was like the one building that the Soviets hadn't yet seized. They were seizing buildings all over through Lithuania. And during the Moscow coup, what happened was, so I was, working in the building, and all of a sudden, I'm looking at the windows, and I noticed that the windows are totally like shaking in the panes. I didn't realize what was going on, but it's like, it felt like the whole building was shaking. And I thought, I didn't know what was going on. Somebody said, the tanks are here. And I look outside, and there's 100 of them. And the first, and they're like sitting there, like pointing their little guns at me, and I'm just like, I don't know anything about war. The closest thing I've come to war is out on my surfboard, on the waves, dude, that's my wave, But when I saw those tanks, this was going down, and the first thought that went into my head was, oh shit, it's like, I'm an American. Here's my passport. I'm already free. I don't need to be here. Then I thought, it's like, I don't want to die. It was the first time I said that to myself in my entire life, is that, with 3 years of sobriety, I don't want to die. And all I've wanted to do all my life and all I could think about is dying, And I knew I'd always been slowly killing myself with drugs and alcohol. And for the first time in my life, I knew I didn't want to die. And I'll tell you right now, it's not like the movies, where you're like, everybody's hugging their coworkers, and all this kind of crap. All of me and my coworkers were kind of staring out the window going, oh shit, this is going to happen. And there's a strange thing kind of happened when these thoughts were going in my head. All of a sudden I kind of, in my head, kind of heard, like, the laughter in AA. I heard my mom's voice. I heard, the people I loved, I realized that, all my life, it's like when you die alone, right? But I realized that I wasn't alone. It's like I realized that at that time that everybody was sending their prayers to me. And regardless of that, basically I was carrying everybody with me, in my heart. I thought my heart was always this like big hole, not just a hole, like an abyss, and but I realized that, that hole's been filled slowly, little by little, with people in Alcoholics Anonymous. And Alcoholics Anonymous has taught me to reach out, to my family and make them a part of my life. And, basically I wasn't alone. I had everybody I ever loved, with me at that time. And it was okay. It wasn't bad, and I realized that, I just had to do what I had to do, and, all I could really do was be of service, to that job and just do what I had to do. And it was all good, and I felt okay. basically everything ended up okay, thank God, because otherwise you wouldn't have me here tonight, I guess. But when I came back to America, it's like I really made an effort to repair my relationship with my family. It's like I didn't know always how to talk to my family. And kind of God works in mysterious ways. My dad had this accident where he fell off this, the second story of a building. So he was basically hospitalized for a while, and I told my spotters, like, I don't know what to do. It's like I don't know how to talk to my dad. And she said, you just go show up at the hospital, even if it's for like 2 minutes, say, hey, Dad, I only have 2 minutes and I got to go, And that's what I started doing. I just kept showing up, to visit my dad every day. And just, he and I both didn't know what to say to each other. He'd be like, how's the weather? Like, it's, warm, and that was like our conversation for a week. But that conversation started to grow, and after 6 months, it's like me and my dad were hanging out for hours on end and talking about everything and, having a good time. He was getting to know me because I let him get to know me, and I didn't know how to let anyone get to know me before, and I learned that through Alcoholics Anonymous. A year after that, my mom got cancer. So she was in chemo all the time, and it was the same thing with my mom. I got to visit her. She didn't know how to get to know me, and I didn't know how to get to know her, but we, God put us together, and we got to know each other, and that's just one more thing that Alcoholics Anonymous has given me as a gift. In 1998, on Thanksgiving morning, my father passed away. He had a heart attack and he passed. Last thing that I said to my dad, we had a conversation on the phone like 2 days before he passed away, and he and I had this wonderful relationship that every time we said goodbye to each other, we had this like little special way of saying goodbye. He would always say to me, I'd be like, all right, bye, Dad. He'd be like, Daiva, are you happy? And I'd say, yeah, I'm happy, Dad. It's your fault I'm happy. And he would get this big grin on his face, And that was the last conversation that I had with him. And I like to think that, when he passed away, that's the smile he got to pass away with. Because, the gift of Alcoholics Anonymous really isn't, everything that I've received. It's the person that I've been able to be for my family, and for other people in Alcoholics Anonymous. I never thought I'd have such a great relationship with my family, and I still do today. My mom and I get along just great, and we support each other, and that's what I've learned here in Alcoholics Anonymous. Life still happens, and life is still rough, and sometimes I still feel different, and it's like. But I'm not pounding my fist as often before. It's like this journey of 15 years has been really incredible because I'm really not the same person that I was when I came here to Alcoholics Anonymous. This is the place that I got to grow, and I'm really lucky that I'm here because a lot of people don't make it, and I have to say, there's like really something to be said about the 12 traditions, too, of Alcoholics Anonymous. The time that I was there in Lithuania, AA had started in Lithuania just in 1988. So I had lived there for a couple of years, and AA was growing, they were always looking at me to know the answers, when I had 3 years, 4 years, and I was the old timer, and I just, be looking at the 12 and 12 going, okay, let me, you want to... You need to know what? Okay, it's like, it's like I didn't know anything, but it's like one thing I did know was the 12 traditions, and when I read those 12 traditions, all the answers, made sense, what we needed to do as a group in Alcoholics Anonymous, there in Lithuania. They're there for a reason, and, it's amazing the way they've come together, and the respect that I've had for this program by working both the 12 steps and the 12 traditions in this program. A couple of months ago, I received a letter from the Lithuanian AA Central Office, and they were inviting me out there this summer because they're celebrating 15 years of AA in Lithuania, and they're having a big convention. So it's just, and they, we're happy to share with me that, those 12 people that I first met in 1989 have now grown into a group of to 100 groups all across Lithuania. So, every single one of them are praying for you guys, because every time I get a chance to go back there, I get a chance to talk about all of you guys and your experience, strength, and hope. So, with that, I'd like to just say one last thing, that ever since I walked in through the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous, I've been walking on the sunny side of the street. Thanks.
And it's progress, it's not perfection. A couple things real quick, and then I'll close it up, is from that experience, through the hard work of Alcoholics Anonymous, good sponsorship, the steps, I reassembled my family, a relationship that was so damaged in divorce, restraining orders, everything, God couldn't even fix it. Okay? God fixed it. Okay? He fixed it. My kids, businesses. I own several restaurants today. Okay? I own several restaurants today. Financially, I don't have a care in the world. I just booked a surprise trip and threw it on my wife today. I'm taking her to Italy, just her and I. She's always wanted to go to Italy, okay? See, I'm trying to write a record that Chuck C. always talked about, okay? I'm trying to write a record from my past, okay? And I'm going to work because I have found that I cannot give enough away because you keep giving to me. Alcoholics Anonymous keeps giving to me and blessing me as long as I stay out of my way long enough to do it. This summer, I took 7 weeks off. I bought a motorhome, took my kids, my wife, went on a 7-week trip this summer. 31 states, 12,000 miles out of the country twice, went to AA all over the place. It was really funny because someone over here, when the people were taking their chips, was saying, welcome home, welcome home. And when I walked up to Akron to Dr. Bob's house, they have people that sit out in front of